All right, let's get into our study for today. We are in the second chapter of the book of Nehemiah. We have seen, laid a little bit of foundation of who Nehemiah is, what he heard from his brother Hanani when Hanani comes back from Jerusalem, the effect that it has upon Nehemiah personally, and what he does. What is his first step after? Well, his first step was that he went into prayer, and we saw that prayer in the first chapter. I mean, a powerful prayer. We're calling it the whirlpool. We're calling it as this began to draw in. And he knows that one of the obstacles that he has concerning this is the king, his boss. Now he says, well, I got a boss, and this guy isn't just a guy that I can say, well, I'm giving you a 2 weeks notice. This is the king of the empire, of the Persian Empire, a huge, affecting much of not just the Middle East, but even into Europe, into Asia. The Persian kingdom was probably at its height under King Artaxerxes, and he knows that he has a quite the obstacle, but he's prayed. In fact, here it is on the bottom of the page of the first chapter. It says, O Lord, I pray, please let your ear be attentive to the prayer of your servant, to the prayer of your servants who desire to fear your name, and let your servant prosper this day, I pray, and grant him mercy in the sight of this man, for I was the king's cupbearer. So what he's asking for, grant that I would have mercy in the sight of Artaxerxes. And that's when we got into the second chapter yesterday, and we see that mercy. We see that God was answering that prayer. He's tending to the king in his regular duties as cupbearer, and he's there. There's a sense that the king feels of the brokenness that is in Nehemiah's life. And this happened like about 2.5 months after he heard about it. And in understanding and seeing this brokenness that is in Nehemiah's life, the king asks him, what's the problem, son? Well, he could have said, get rid of this guy and let's get somebody else in there. No, what he did is that he asked him what the problem was. And then he asked, well, what do you want me to do about it? And Nehemiah has that boldness, like we saw in verse 5 of the second chapter. If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in your sight, I ask that you send me to Judah, to the city of my father's tombs, that I may rebuild it. So if you're going to ask, you might as well go all the way. And then verse 7, if it pleases the king, let letters be given to me for the governors of the region beyond the river. So he says, if you let me go, rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, give me some time off, give me a little bit of extended, maybe this is what we would call a sabbatical, okay? Anyway, he says, give me some time off. And he says, how about if I get some letters of permission from you? Just a little bit of letters of reference, so that when I go over there and these governors, because he's going to travel, what did we say, over 1,600 miles. And on the way, there's going to be different regions of the Persian Empire. And if I have these letters with your royal stamp on it, that's authority. That's authority. God said that he would give us favor with man and favor with God. So he gets these letters. Well, he asks for these letters, And then he was, well, now that we're asking, might as well, it's either going to be my head or it's going to be Jerusalem, one or the other. Let's see which one it is. If it pleases the king, let letters be given to me for the governors, okay, that they must permit me to pass through till I come to Judah. And then verse 8, and a letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, that he must give me timber to make beams for the gates of the citadel, which pertain to the temple. So, I mean, he's asking him for this, and then for that, and then for that. And I thought he even asked him for some guards to, maybe a little bit of some of the Green Berets or special forces that were, under Artaxerxes' command, and send them with him to go along that way. Wouldn't it have been interesting? I haven't even thought of this till now. If some of those warriors were Jewish warriors that had been serving in the Persian army, and they go down there with Nehemiah to Jerusalem. Never even thought of that. If it pleases the king, let letters be given to me for the governors, and a letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, that he must give me timber. Oh, must. Not a. This isn't a request. This is a demand from the king for Nehemiah. That he must give me timber to make beams for the gates of the citadel, which pertains to the temple, for the city wall, for the house that I will occupy. And the king granted them to me according to the good hand of my God upon me. What do we see? We see the prosperity. We see provision. We always talk about vision and provision. You have to have a vision first from God, and then you expect God to provide for the vision. That's where provision comes, is that God begins to provide for the vision. And all of a sudden, it's almost like Nehemiah's walking out of the palace, and he's got all these papers with him, all these things. He's just trying to stuff them into his satchel, and say, whoa, I can't believe I gotta go tell the missus. I gotta tell her what God has done. Oh my, gather the elders together, gather the priests, gather the Levites, gather the people, the leadership together. Man, we got these letters, and I could see him spreading them out, the scrolls, spreading them out on the table and looking around and say, look at these, these are real. God is answering our prayer. It wasn't just Nehemiah's prayer, because we go back to chapter 1 and we find out it wasn't just Nehemiah, it was others that were praying along with him to get this done. And it's getting done. Then I went, and here's where we left off yesterday. Oh my God, the first step. What is it? A long journey starts with the first step. Then I went to the governors in the region beyond the river. Okay, we didn't have in the Holy Writ any real information about how he prepared. Now we jumping over to, man, we're on the road again. With Willie Nelson, on the road again, yeah. Now I went to the governors in the region beyond the river and gave them the king's letters. Now the king had sent captains of the army and horsemen with me. So there's the army that we're talking about. I'm not sure that he even asked for them, but I know that they were provided to him. So with all this going on here, we see Mr. Nehemiah saying, I am on the road, and we're taking off. And we got letters in our hands, and we're going to the governors. And every time we come to a new region, what we're doing is we're going to that governor and say, hey, let me introduce myself. My name is Nehemiah. I'm the king's cupbearer, and we're going to Judah. And before you say anything, here's the permission that I have from Artaxerxes. You must permit me to pass through on my way to Judah. That's what the letters were all about. Then we get to verse 10, and verse 10, it's what to be expected. Many times we don't realize it, but just expect it. This is always going to happen.